At dawn, a man in construction gear named Dalton Russell strolls into a New York bank, chewing gum and casually laying out his tools like it's just another shift. Nearby, a woman yells into her phone until a bank worker asks her to quiet down. While attention is on her, Dalton calmly flashes his lights into the security cameras, burning out their view. At that exact moment, three more workers walk in, lugging heavy equipment. Without any warning, the front doors lock. Dalton instantly seizes control, shouting for everyone to get down. In under a minute, the robbers own the bank. Outside, a patrol officer spots smoke leaking from the building and calls it in. Dalton steps into sight, raises his gun, and coolly warns the cop to back off if he cares about the hostages. Across town, Detective Keith Frazier chats on the phone with his girlfriend, a fellow cop, venting about an internal affairs probe into missing drug money. The call ends on a light note, but his worries don't. As he talks with his partner, Bill Mitchell, their boss assigns them to the ongoing bank siege because the usual robbery specialist is away. They head out immediately. Inside, the captives are marched to the basement and ordered to turn over phones and keys. A woman using the alias Stevie gathers everything and signals Dalton. He confronts a bank worker about a missing phone. The man lies. Dalton calmly scrolls through other phones, finds a matching contact, dials it, and hears the ringtone inside a nearby office. He locks himself in briefly, then comes back out and knocks the liar unconscious. His point lands. The employee instantly surrenders a hidden key, and a boy gives up his handheld game, though Dalton allows him to keep playing. The hostages are then forced to strip to their underwear and change into matching outfits. Blindfolds go on, and they're split into separate rooms, blurring the line between robber and victim. Keith and Bill arrive outside and start reading the scene. The first responding officer, still rattled from having a gun in his face, admits he saw almost nothing. Keith calms him, then checks in with Captain John Darius. John explains that communications are jammed and all underground exits are sealed. Keith listens, realizing this isn't a quick smash and grab. The crew is still arranging the pieces, and when they're ready, they'll open negotiations. Meanwhile, bank founder Arthur Case quietly meets with Madeleine White, a powerful fixer and negotiator. He asks her to get involved in the robbery but cares only about one thing: protecting safe deposit box 392. Sensing a deeper secret, Madeline presses him about its contents. Arthur dodges the question, insisting only that whatever is inside must never reach police or the public. She agrees to step in. Back at the bank, the robbers shove an elderly man outside after he suffers a heart attack. His release gives law enforcement their first concrete intel. He says there are four robbers dressed like painters, the small but critical if they ever have to breach the building. Soon afterward, Bill spots a painter's van parked nearby, looking suspicious and out of place. Keith attempts to phone the robbers, but no one answers. Inside, Dalton's team finds a storage room and begins digging into the floor. While officers try to gain leverage above ground, the gang quietly prepares the next phase below. At headquarters, security feeds from the bank show only darkness. Dalton's infrared lights have completely blinded every camera. At the same time, Madeline moves in on the political front, arranging a private meeting with the mayor. She demands permission to enter the crime scene and talk directly to the robbers. Officially, the mayor doesn't have that kind of authority, but the pressure of the situation forces his hand. Not long after, the robbers send out an Indian bank employee with a desk drawer hanging from his neck. Officers panic, mistake him for a suicide bomber, and slam him to the ground. The drawer actually holds a written list of demands: 2 buses and a jet for their escape. Keith and the team decide not to grant anything until they confirm the hostages are still alive. Arthur Case suddenly appears at the command post, offering to help arrange a jet. The officers stare, unsure what to make of him, until Keith politely tells him to wait outside. They refocus on the freed employee, who is shaken and obsessed with retrieving his turban, sacred to his faith. Bill steadies him, reminding him his colleagues remain inside. The man finally manages to say there are around 40 hostages and only 4 robbers, all now dressed in the same black outfits as the captives. Soon, The police receive another note requesting food for 50 people. Before sending anything in, they hide listening devices in the delivery. Inside, a robber nicknamed Steve-O pretends to be a hostage and loudly encourages everyone to pull off their masks. Dalton storms in, yanks him out, and once they're alone, beats him down without hesitation. Moments later, boxes of pizza and water are ready. When the robbers come to collect them, Keith steps forward, introduces himself, and calmly announces that from this point on, every call will go straight to him. Dalton doesn't react, simply turns and walks back into the bank. Keith's team starts monitoring the bugs hidden in the pizza boxes. The voices they hear sound foreign, and someone assumes the language is Russian. Another officer disagrees but can't name it. Trusting his instincts, Keith puts the audio on loudspeaker. A nearby construction worker confidently declares it's Albanian. Keith hauls the man into the surveillance truck and asks him to translate. The worker admits he can't follow the words, but he's sure about the language because his ex-wife is Albanian. Keith pushes him to call her. Inside the bank, the robbers once again move the hostages to a different room. Dalton raises his voice at Stevie in front of everyone, staging a scolding. Quietly blend back into the hostage crowd. Later, Dalton sits across from the young boy playing his video game and offers him a slice of pizza. The boy explains that the game rewards points for crimes. Rather than feeling scared, he looks at the robbers like real-world players racking up a high score. Outside, the worker's ex-wife arrives, trailing her stack of unpaid parking tickets. Dalton has already guessed what she wants and agrees to cooperate. After listening to the recording for a while, she suddenly laughs and tells the officers the audio is actually propaganda speeches by Albania's former leader, Enver Hoxha. Keith realizes the gang anticipated the bugs and is always one move ahead. Inside, the crew opens only safe deposit box 392. They ignore every other box and take a single envelope filled with documents. Shortly after, the mayor appears with Madeleine, and the two meet Keith privately. Madeleine openly offers to bury the issue of a missing $140,000 if she's allowed to talk directly to the robber. Keith refuses the bribe and tells her she can wait at a nearby shop if she wants. He calls Dalton, stalls by claiming the jet is still being prepared, and pushes to learn what Dalton really wants. Dalton shuts him down, demanding obedience if Keith wants the hostages to live. Before hanging up, he throws out an odd riddle about comparing the weight of trains passing through Grand Central to the paper used for U.S. currency. The room scrambles for an answer. One officer explains that U.S. bills are made from cotton, not wood pulp. Another jumps in and says they weigh the same, revealing the trick. Dalton accepts the reply and casually adds a new request: sandwiches. Down below, Stevie, and Steve-O finally break through and finish the hole under the floor. In another room, hostages whisper to each other, sharing their fears and theories. An elderly Jewish man calmly argues that the robbers won't kill them. They are precise criminals, not fanatical terrorists, and that belief eases the room a little. As night deepens, the tension outdoors relaxes slightly. Keith allows Madeleine to contact Dalton. On the call, she promises to deliver everything he's asked for, but only if she can secure control of a very specific safe deposit box. Dalton quickly deduces she's neither law enforcement nor bank staff and invites her in for a face-to-face. Keith orders her to stay sharp and return by sunrise. Madeleine reminds him of her powerful connections and insists he trust her. Inside the bank, she sits down with Dalton and offers him $2 million if he surrenders, with the promise of a lighter sentence. Dalton refuses and demands to know what she's truly protecting. Before she can answer, he recounts the story of a Jewish-American banker during World War II who chose to collaborate with the Germans, grew rich, and helped build banks using plundered assets while others lost everything. Madeleine instantly understands who he is pointing at, but she keeps pressing for a deal. Dalton produces an envelope and asks if it matches what she's hunting. Madeleine keeps her composure and repeats her offer, but only if he leaves with the envelope. She asks how he plans to get out. Dalton calmly replies that he'll just walk out the front door, ending the conversation without resolution. Later, Keith confronts Madeleine about what went on inside. She brushes him off, lies without concern, and once again tries to intimidate him using the missing money. Keith laughs, showing her he isn't scared. Neither party gets what they want, and their standoff intensifies. As the night wears on, Captain John wonders aloud why the crew keeps demanding a jet, pointing out that even at the Munich Olympics, terrorists never got one. That comment flips a switch for Keith. He realizes the demands and odd questions are just stalling tactics. Keith calls Dalton and says the jet is ready, but insists on checking the hostages first. Dalton agrees and allows him to walk through the rooms one at a time. In the third room, which holds the most problematic hostages, Steve and Stevie are hidden in plain sight. Keith softly reassures everyone that he's working to free them, unaware that the escape plan is already underway. A bit later, Dalton escorts Keith back toward the entrance. Keith bluntly asks why Dalton keeps wasting time when both know the jet is a lie. He warns that dragging this out will force the police into an assault. Dalton calmly explains that they can only storm the building if there's an immediate threat, like a hostage being killed. He then lightens the mood, joking that Keith might need more proposals. Keith laughs and says only his girlfriend wants one. Dalton shifts the conversation, asking if Keith truly loves her. Keith simply thanks him, and for a brief moment, the negotiation feels balanced again. Suddenly, Keith lunges, trying to rip off Dalton's mask. Steve-O instantly raises his gun and stops him. Furious, Dalton throws Keith out of the bank and warns that crossing the line will bring serious consequences. Soon after, he calls and orders the police to aim the truck camera at the bank interior. On screen, they watch Dalton seemingly execute a hostage. Keith rushes to the entrance, demanding to know what Dalton really wants. Dalton just repeats his calls for buses and a jet, pinning the hostage's death on Keith's earlier stunt. Afterward, higher-ranking officers arrive and strip Keith of command. Captain John takes over and prepares to storm the bank. To minimize casualties, they gear up with rubber bullets. While they wait, Keith makes small talk with another cop, who reveals he was once shot by a 12-year-old boy and still reacts based on that trauma. He cuts himself off, realizing he may have said too much, and that sparks an idea in Keith. Keith sprints back to the surveillance truck and rummages through the desk drawer, uncovering a hidden listening device. He tries to call off the assault, but the operation is already in motion. Inside, the robbers move quickly. They release the hostages and melt into the crowd as everyone bolts for the exits. Chaos explodes. Some captives are hit with rounds, and officers detain everyone they can. Once the building is secured, the truth slowly emerges. The robbers' guns are plastic fakes. The execution was staged. No cash or valuables appear to be missing. On the surface, the robbery looks like a total failure. In reality, the crew has already slipped away, hidden among the panicked hostages. Keith and Bill methodically question each person, using pressure and quick tricks to flush out suspects, but nobody can point to the robbers. Every witness remembers only other hostages. With no clear suspects and no obvious theft, Keith is ordered to let the case go. The missing money is quietly recovered, and the official investigation shuts down. Keith, however, still doubts whatever happened between Madeleine and Dalton. He digs into the bank's records and finds that box 392 has never been recorded in the system since the bank opened in 1948. Just as he suspected, armed with a search warrant, he runs into Madeleine at the courthouse by chance. She reminds him of their supposed deal and says she doesn't want further involvement with Arthur. Keith replies that they never had an agreement and plays back a recording of her and the mayor trying to bribe him at the bank. Madeleine remains poised, praises his talent as a detective, and hints that the city will need him someday, her warning wrapped in polite advice. Madeleine later assures Arthur that the thieves only took the envelope as leverage and that he can buy it back if they attempt blackmail. She still pushes him, arguing that no one would pull off such a flawless heist just for a single envelope and ignore the money. Arthur finally admits the box held not only the documents but also loose diamonds and a Cartier ring he once took from a Jewish friend he handed over to the Germans years ago. He writes Madeleine a check to buy her silence. Back at the bank, Dalton remains hidden behind the fake wall rebuilt in the storage room. His three partners and the elderly Jewish man wait outside for his exit. By the time Keith Keith and Bill arrive to open box 392. Dalton has already slipped out of his hiding place. He casually walks toward the door and, by chance, bumps into Keith. Keith doesn't recognize him, and Dalton strolls out freely, carrying the incriminating papers and several bags of diamonds, exactly as he promised. Inside, Keith and Bill crack open safe 392 and uncover Dalton's chewing gum, a ring, and a note that says, "Follow the ring." They confront Arthur, demanding to know what box 392 really was and why Madeleine was sent to negotiate. Arthur stonewalls, so Keith shows him the ring, signaling that he'll keep chasing the truth. Keith doesn't stop there. He joins the mayor and Madeleine for lunch and subtly pressures her to contact the State Department's Office of War Crimes Issues, hinting at Arthur's ugly history. He walks away, leaving Madeleine to absorb the implication. That night, after pushing back against the city's most powerful people, Keith returns home relieved to see his girlfriend waiting. As he empties his pockets, he finds a loose diamond. Dalton had slipped it into his pocket that morning. The final gift leaves Keith facing a decision. Turn the diamond in as evidence or turn it into a ring for the woman he loves. Which path will he choose?